Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am Amanda and this is Dr. Mommy Budgets. I'm here today to do a video on basically how I do my budget, how I set up my budget, and just pretty much how it is created. This is a part 2 video that immediately follows another video that I talk about my budgeting routine. So basically those items that I cut out of my budget, tried to trim it down lean and mean so that I could just focus on paying down my debt and making my way to financial freedom, because like a lot of people, I do not plan to work the rest of my life. I have other chapters of my life that I would like to embark upon, and one of them being not working, especially in the corporate setting, and also to travel a lot more, as well as providing service to others in a variety of ways. So let us dive into this video. First off, it is the first day of school for my two younger teenagers. So yeah, first day of school. I cannot believe we are into the early days of August and school has started again. So that's where we are. So let's dive right into my budget, how I actually set up my budget. Now, I do not have any notes or anything because I have been doing this budgeting technique forever. But how I actually got started with my budget was primarily based off of how I get paid. So my paychecks have been coming to me weekly for the last 20 years. So therefore, with that in mind, and once I decided to get my budget together and start to really focus on paying down debt, I came to the realization that I wanted to budget my money weekly. If I get money weekly, I want to budget it weekly. That works for me. I have explained that in previous videos, and that's how I chose to do it. Actually, that's what I've been doing for the past 20 years. So, what I typically do is with my budget, I look at first off, how I really got started was I looked at the calendar, one full calendar year. I do this every single year. And the first thing I look for when I'm looking at those calendar months is the months with the 5 Fridays, because I knew right then that would be a motivating factor for me, because I could use that 5th Friday's monies the way I wanted to. It was considered an extra paycheck, all of that. So that was the first thing. When I pulled out that calendar, that was the first thing I did. I grabbed the calendar, pulled that calendar out, and that was like, an excitement for me. That was that thing that said, hey, yeah, you're going to have this extra money. It can kind of serve as a reward as you develop this budget. So that was exciting. That was the first thing I did. We're being honest here. And I'm just going through it and showing you guys how one second. I need to plug this computer up before it dies. Okay. That's the first thing I did. Then secondly, I looked through the calendar to see that, hey, the majority of the months of the year have 4 Fridays. So I'm still focusing on my paychecks, when they are going to be coming in. So this is how I initially set up my budget. So I saw, hey, about 8 out of the 12 months are going to be 4-week or 4 Fridays pays. So that led me to know that, hey, it's probably going to be best if you budget your money based on a 4-week cycle instead of, those months that have the 5 weeks. So whatever you're needing to pay, you need to break it up into a 4-week cycle for that month. And thus, that's how my budgeting journey began. So each and every month, I do a budget. I mean, each and every week, I do a budget of my paycheck. So that was step number one. Step number two was I gathered all of my bills and debts and expenses, and I wrote all this information I was writing out, just regular tablet and a pen. I wrote out all my due dates. And for the majority of my bills and expenses and that type of thing, they are due around the first to second week of the month. So in order for those items to be paid by that due date, I elected to pay those debts the Friday before. So basically, all of my bills that's due at the first probably 8 days of the month, I pay with that last paycheck of that previous Friday. So that fourth week's pay, that's when I don't pay it with that. Let me back up. That I do not pay it with that paycheck. I pay it on that Friday. Okay. Now, let's take one of my typical debts or expenses. I'm going to go through and show you how I actually budget my 4 paychecks for that one expense. Let's see. Now, let's take the mortgage. Since the mortgage is the largest debt that I do have, this is what I typically do for my mortgage. In the beginning, I had a first mortgage and a second mortgage on this property. And the first mortgage was around $800. My mortgage has always been somewhere between I think the highest it got was probably like about $950, all the way down to like $760. So let's round that off to $800. Okay, that's the first mortgage. Then I had a second mortgage on the property that was $260 a month. So what I decided to do was take that 800 and divide it by the first 3 paychecks that I get for in 1 month. So out of week 1, week 2, and week 3, those Fridays, I set aside that number, which is, let's do it real quick. I'm gonna try to deal with some real numbers here. We're gonna utilize $800, and okay, come on, calculator. 800 divided by 3, so that's $266. Okay, so I would take $266 out of week's 1 paycheck, put it away in a bill savings account, which I know you guys that have been following me for a moment, you already know about that account. So that $268 will be put there each Friday for the first 3 Fridays. So $268 week 1, $268 set aside week 2, and $268 set aside week 3. Now for that second mortgage that was $260, I take that money out of the week 4 paycheck. So that's how my mortgage was split up across all 4 Fridays for 1 month. So I took the $268 out of the first 3 weeks and the $260 out of the last Friday of the month. Has worked like a charm for years. If it's working, why do I need to change it, right? So that is pretty much how I do all of my debts. Now, there are some, over the years, I've had to move around and their due date may have changed. So I didn't pay them, let's just say the phone bill's due date moved from week 2 to week 4, or it was due, let's say the second week on the 15th of the month, then they moved it to the 30th of the month. I had to make adjustments as to when I paid that bill. So yeah, here or there, you know, you have to make adjustments with your budgeting, but for the most part, if the due dates are going to stay the same, the amounts are going to stay the same with those debts, you know, just constant billing. Maybe like your Hulu, my Hulu is $5.99. My phone bill is $2.38 for cell phone lines. You know, those items that tend to not like fluctuate or change, I divide those numbers by 4: week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4, Friday's paychecks. And I put that money away in the bill savings account until it's time for me to make that payment for that week. So I do that with all of my expenses, all of my debts. And that's pretty much how I have developed my budget. And that is the budget that I project and review every single week. Okay. So I do a budget projection and a budget recap of that. I mean, even let's see, what are some of my other debts? Let's see, like my utility bills, my electric bill and my gas bill. They are due at the beginning of the month, but I pay them the month before the very last Friday. However, my way of accumulating that money is I actually take that money out of the week's 4 paycheck. So it just kind of depends, you know, on when your bills fall or are due during that month, and as to how much money you need to set aside out of each pay. So you're definitely going to have to grab all of your bills. First off, you're going to need to know how much money you're bringing in. Okay, every week, bi-weekly, monthly, you need to know how much money is going to hit your account before you can start budgeting it out. Then secondly, you're going to write down all your debts and when they are due. Debts, bills, expenses, however you want to look at it. And that's everything, guys, from buying food to putting gas in your car to insurances to debts that you have, credit cards, phone bills, whatever you got, you need to pull them all out. Every single bill. Write it down, write the due date down, write the title of the bill, the due date, and when it's due. So that way you can divide that money up each week and set it aside in an account until it's time for you to pull that money out of that account and make that payment. I mean, that's the system. When you first get it set up, of course, it may be, you know, some trial and error. You may forget some things. It may be a little difficult for you to do it. But for the most part, once you get into a rhythm and you're doing this week after week, bi-weekly after bi-weekly experience, month after month, it's a no-brainer. But yeah, that's pretty much how my budget flows. I actually have a little cheat sheet here on my phone that shows me or provide me a breakdown of all of my debts that I need to pay each week. And this listing also may fluctuate or change based on, you know, if you finish paying off a debt, you remove that one out of the listing. That means you can reallocate some of your monies. If you need to add a new debt, you know, where do you need to put that in your weekly listings? So yeah, you may have to do things like that, but for the most part, if you're not, you know, one that's always buying stuff or, you know, or acquiring so much debt, taking out so many loans, your stuff should stay consistently. And if you're on a debt-free journey, you should not be buying a whole lot of stuff or taking out a lot of loans. Okay? I'll pop a screenshot up on the screen of this video so you can kind of see what it is, but it is all of my debts and they are broken out in a weekly fashion. And I mean, it's like week 1, week 2, week 3, how I plan to actually spend that paycheck for that week. And a lot of this you do see in my budget projection videos. It's pretty much the same thing, but I say that to say this is a little reminder. So basically, I can budget on the road, guys. You do not have to stop budgeting your money if you are off on a business trip, if you are taking a vacation, if you need to go and handle an emergency in your life. You got your budgeted items right there on your phone, right there at your fingertips. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk to you about as it relates to how I actually budget out my monies each week. So please let me know in the comment section below how you budget your money. You know, what type of tools do you use? Are you a pen and paper person? Are you a spreadsheet person? Do you need something that's very technical with all sorts of calculus and pre-calculus and trigonometry type calculations, set up? To each his own, whatever's going to work for you. At the end of the day, we just need you budgeting that money and not spending more than you bring in. That's it at the end of the day. You want to be able to save money and not spend more than you bring in per month, per week, or however often you get paid. All right, guys, this is all I have for this video for today. This is Dr. Mommy Budgets, where we dream big but start small around here. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.